The grandfather clock in the marble hallway chimed midnight as Damien Cross pushed through the heavy oak doors of his Manhattan penthouse. His Italian leather shoes echoed against the pristine floors, each step a testament to another failed business venture that had cost him millions. The tech merger he'd been pursuing for months had crumbled at the last minute, leaving him bitter and exhausted. Damien loosened his silk tie, his jaw clenched with frustration. At 35, he had built an empire worth $12 billion. Yet tonight felt like his lowest point. His wife had left him 2 years ago, taking nothing but her freedom and leaving behind their infant daughter, Lily. Since then, his world had become a carefully orchestrated machine of nannies, housekeepers, and assistants. As he moved through the dimly lit living room toward his private study, something caught his eye near the marble fireplace. A small figure lay curled on the cold floor, and his breath caught in his throat. It was Rosa Martinez, his 24-year-old maid, sleeping with baby Lily cradled protectively in her arms. Damien's single quote's first instinct was fury. Why wasn't his daughter in her crib? Why was his employee sleeping on his expensive floors?
He opened
his mouth to wake them with a sharp reprimand, but something stopped him. Rosa's dark hair spilled across the marble like silk, and her face, usually marked with quiet determination during working hours, looked peaceful yet exhausted. Lily, barely 8 months old, was nestled against Rosa's chest, her tiny fingers clutching the maid's simple white uniform. Both were covered by what appeared to be Rosa's own cardigan, a thin barrier. Against the cool air conditioning that Damien preferred to keep at precisely 68 degrees, he knelt down slowly, his expensive suit creasing against the floor. He'd never touched before. That's when he noticed the purple bruise blooming on Rosa's forearm, partially hidden by her sleeve. His daughter's cheeks were stained with dried tears, and her usually pristine nursery outfit was wrinkled from ours. Of being held, Damien's mind raced. Where was Helena, the highly recommended nanny he paid $5,000 a week? Why was Rosa, who was only responsible for cleaning and light housekeeping, caring for his daughter? He had hired Rosa 6 months ago through a reputable agency, and she had always been professional, quiet, and efficient. She spoke softly accented English and worked longer hours than required, never complaining about the demanding schedule. As he studied the peaceful scene before him, something unfamiliar stirred in his chest. When was the last time he had held Lily like this? When had he last seen her sleep so contentedly? His daughter was usually fussy and distant even with him, but here she looked completely at peace. Rosa stirred slightly, her arms instinctively tightening around Lily as if protecting her even in sleep. Damien realized that whatever had happened tonight, this young woman had put his daughter's needs above her own comfort, sleeping on cold marble instead of her own bed. The billionaire, who had never hesitated to fire employees for minor infractions, found himself unable to wake them. Instead, he quietly retrieved a cashmere throw from the nearby sofa and gently draped it over both sleeping figures, his movements careful not to disturb their rest. Damien retreated to his study, but found concentration impossible. He poured himself a glass of aged whiskey and stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows watching the city lights blur below. Questions plagued his mind, and the unfamiliar sight of genuine care in his home had unsettled him more than any business failure at 3 in the morning. He heard soft footsteps and turned to see Rosa standing in the doorway, Lily awake and gurgling contentedly in her arms. Rosa's eyes were wide with panic, clearly expecting to be fired for overstepping her boundaries. "Mr. Cross, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No, I shouldn't have. Where's Helena?" he interrupted, his voice quieter than usual. Rosa's shoulders sagged with relief that he wasn't immediately shouting. "She left around 6 o'clock, sir. She said she had a family emergency and couldn't stay overnight as planned." "Miss Lily was crying for hours after you left for your meeting. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't sleep, and the bottle you left got cold." Damien's jaw tightened. Helena had never mentioned any family issues, and he paid her specifically to be available for overnight care when his business required late hours. "I tried calling your office, but they said you were in meetings and couldn't be disturbed," Rosa continued, bouncing Lily gently as the baby began to fuss. I didn't want to interrupt something important over a crying baby. So you took care of her yourself, Damien stated, watching as Rosa expertly shifted Lily to a more comfortable position. Yes, sir. I know it's not my job, but she was so upset. I made her a new bottle, changed her diaper, and tried to put her in the crib, but she kept crying. The only thing that calmed her was being held. Rosa's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I was afraid if I moved her to the crib once she fell asleep, she'd wake up and start crying again. I didn't want to disturb your rest when you came home, so I stayed on the floor. Damien studied her carefully. The bruise on your arm? Gosh. Rosa instinctively touched the purple mark. Miss Lily was very upset, sir. She grabbed onto me tightly when she finally calmed down. It's nothing serious. It's the simplicity of her explanation. Struck him, This young woman had endured hours of a screaming infant, sacrificed her own comfort, and even accepted being hurt, all to ensure his daughter felt safe and loved. Meanwhile, the highly credentialed nanny he trusted had abandoned her post without proper notice. You been taking care of children before? He asked. Yes, sir. I have 3 younger siblings back in Guatemala. My mother worked long hours, so I helped raise them. Rosa's voice grew softer. Babies just need to feel safe and loved. Miss Lily is a good baby, just lonely sometimes. Damien felt an uncomfortable truth settling in his chest. When was the last time he had spent more than 15 minutes with his daughter? When had he last noticed if she seemed lonely? His life was structured around board meetings, conference calls, and profit margins. Lily's care had been delegated to professionals while he focused on building wealth she would someday inherit. Why didn't you use one of the guest bedrooms? He asked. Rosa looked down at her feet. I didn't think it was appropriate, sir. I'm just the maid. Those rooms are for important guests, not employees. The word just echoed in Damien's mind. This woman, who had shown more maternal instinct in one night than he had displayed in months, considered herself just anything. She had seen his daughters need and responded with her whole heart. Asking for nothing in return, Lily reached up and touched Rosa's face with her tiny hand, cooing softly. The interaction was so natural, so full of trust, that Damien felt something crack open inside his chest. Rosa, he said quietly, what Helena did was unacceptable. You saved the night. The next morning arrived with unprecedented chaos in the Cross household. Damien had barely slept, his mind churning with decisions that felt both impulsive and absolutely necessary. He had built his empire on calculated risks and decisive action, but this felt different. This felt personal. By 7 a.m., he had already made several phone calls that would shock everyone who knew him. The first was to his personal assistant, James, instructing him to immediately terminate Helena's contract and ensure she never worked for another wealthy family in the city. The second was to his lawyer, requesting immediate background checks on every employee in his household. The third was to his interior designer, demanding that the guest room adjacent to Lily's nursery be converted into proper living quarters by the end of the week. When Rosa arrived for her usual morning shift, she found Damien in the kitchen making coffee, something the billionaire had never done in his own home. Lily sat in her high chair, actually eating breakfast instead of crying, while Damien awkwardly tried to manage both tasks. Mr. Cross? Rosa asked hesitantly, clearly confused. By the domestic scene. Rosa, we need to talk, Damien said, abandoning the coffee maker. Please sit down. She remained standing, clutching her cleaning supplies. Sir, if this is about last night, I promise it won't happen again. You can find somewhere else to stay when you need overnight childcare. You're not in trouble, Damien. Interrupted. Quite the opposite. I have a proposition for you. Rosa's eyes widened as Lily squealed happily, reaching for her with both tiny hands. Without thinking, Rosa set down her supplies and lifted the baby, who immediately settled against her shoulder. I want to offer you a new position, Damien continued. It's not as a maid, but as Lily's full-time caregiver. The salary would be $80,000 annually, plus health insurance, 2 weeks paid vacation, and living quarters here in the penthouse. The color drained from Rosa's face. Sir, I don't understand. Helena was paid $60,000, has a degree in child development, and comes with impeccable references. But she abandoned my daughter when she needed care most. You have no formal training, no degree, and no experience beyond raising your siblings. Yet in one night you showed more dedication to Lily's well-being than anyone I've employed." Rosa sat down heavily, still holding Lily. "Mr. Cross, I'm grateful for the offer, but I'm not qualified. I don't know about childhood development or educational milestones or—" "You know how to love a child," Damien said simply. "You know how to put her needs above your own comfort. You know how to make her feel safe. Those aren't skills you learn in textbooks." By noon, word of Damien's decision had spread through his social and business circles like wildfire. His executive assistant fielded dozens of calls from shocked colleagues and family friends. His mother called 3 times, appalled that he would trust his daughter to some random cleaning girl. His business partner questioned his judgment, suggesting the stress of recent losses had affected his decision-making. The household staff watched in amazement as Damien personally showed Rosa through the penthouse, explaining Lily's routines and preferences with an attention to detail none of them knew he possessed. Margaret, the head cook, whispered to Carlos, the chauffeur, that she'd never seen Mr. Cross spend so much time discussing his daughter's needs. "This is Lily's favorite book," Damien explained, holding up a worn copy of Goodnight Moon. "I'm not sure when she developed preferences. Helena never mentioned reading to her." Rosa took the book gently. She likes the rhythm of the words. Babies respond to patterns and familiar voices. Reading helps them feel secure. Damien paused, studying her face. "You really did help raise your siblings. The time I was 12. Sir, Mama worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. I learned that children need consistency, patience, and someone who truly sees them as individuals, not just small problems to solve." That afternoon, Damien did something that shocked his staff even more than the promotion itself. He canceled his remaining meetings for the day and spent hours watching Rosa interact with Lily, asking questions about childcare that revealed just how little he knew about his own daughter's daily life. Asterisk 3 weeks into Rosa's new role. Cross household had transformed in ways no one anticipated. Lily, who had been a fussy and difficult baby under Helena's care, now slept through the night and woke with genuine smiles. Her development seemed to accelerate as Rosa engaged with her constantly, talking, singing, and playing interactive games that stimulated both her mind and emotions. Damien found himself drawn to observe these interactions, initially telling himself he was simply monitoring his new employee's performance, but gradually he realized he was learning about his own daughter for the first time. Rosa had an intuitive understanding of Lily's needs that went far beyond basic childcare. "See how she kicks her legs when you make that funny face?" Rosa explained. One evening, as Damien watched from the doorway, "She's trying to communicate with you. Babies her age are learning cause and effect. When she does something and gets a reaction, it teaches her that her actions matter." Damien stepped closer, intrigued. "So her crying isn't just random?" "Never random, sir. She cries differently when she's hungry versus tired versus wanting attention. Helena treated all crying the same way, try to stop it as quickly as possible. But Lily needed someone to listen to what she was actually saying." That night, Damien found himself staying awake not for work, but to participate in Lily's evening routine. Rosa taught him how to read his daughter's cues, how to hold her in ways that made her feel secure, and how to engage with her developing personality. "She has your eyes," Rosa observed as Damien successfully soothed Lily after a difficult day. "But she's more patient than you are." Damien looked up, surprised by the gentle teasing in Rosa's voice. Their relationship had evolved from employer-employee to something more collaborative, though he couldn't quite define it. Rosa spoke freely about Lily's needs, offered suggestions about the household routine, and had begun to feel comfortable expressing opinions about the baby's welfare. "You think I'm impatient?" he asked. "With everything except her," Rosa replied, adjusting the blanket around Lily. "I've watched you in business calls. You interrupt, you pace, you make decisions before people finish explaining situations. With Miss Lily, you wait. You let her set the pace." The observation unsettled him because it was accurate. Somehow his daughter had become the only person in his life who could slow him down. As autumn progressed, Damien's priorities began shifting in subtle but significant ways. he rearranged his schedule to be present for Lily's morning routine and evening bedtime. He started working from home more frequently, claiming it was more efficient, though Rosa suspected he simply wanted to be nearby. The transformation wasn't just in Damien's relationship with Lily. Rosa herself was changing. The quiet, careful woman who had cleaned his house had blossomed into a confident caregiver who advocated fearlessly for Lily's needs. When Damien suggested hiring additional help, Rosa politely but firmly explained why continuity of care was crucial for the baby's emotional development. When he wanted to enroll Lily in an expensive infant enrichment program, Rosa suggested they first focus on creating enriching experiences at home. Money can't buy attachment, Rosa explained one evening as they watched Lily babble happily in her playpen. She needs to trust that the people who care for her will be consistent, reliable, and genuinely invested in her well-being. Programs and classes can supplement that foundation, but they can't replace it. Damien realized that Rosa was teaching him about more than childcare. She was showing him what unconditional care looked like. Her devotion to Lily was pure, uncomplicated by ambition or ulterior motives. She simply wanted the baby to thrive. The household staff noticed the changes. 2. Margaret began preparing Lily's meals with extra attention, knowing Rosa would notice and appreciate the effort. Carlos started driving more carefully when the baby was in the car, inspired by Rosa's protective instincts. Even the groundskeeper began avoiding loud equipment during Lily's nap times. It's like she brought heart into this house, Margaret confided to Carlos. Mr. Cross was always fair to work for, but now he seems ... human. 6 months after that transformative midnight discovery, Damien's life had become unrecognizable even to himself. The man who had once measured success solely in quarterly profits now found his greatest joy in Lily's first successful attempt at clapping her hands. The penthouse that had felt like an elegant museum now echoed with laughter, baby talk, and the gentle sounds of a family learning to be together. On a snowy December evening, Damien arrived home to find Rosa in the living room, teaching Lily to play peekaboo. The baby's delighted squeals filled the space with warmth that no amount of expensive heating could replicate. What struck him most wasn't just Lily's happiness, but Rosa's complete absorption in the moment. She played with the same intensity he had once reserved for corporate negotiations. "Daddy's home," Rosa said softly, and Lily immediately turned toward the door, her face lighting up with recognition and excitement. The word daddy had become natural in Rosa's vocabulary when referring to Damien in Lily's presence, but tonight it made his chest tighten with emotion. He was finally becoming the father his daughter deserved, largely because Rosa had shown him what that meant. "How was your day?" Damien asked, settling beside them on the carpet, something that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "Wonderful." "Lily said mama today," Rosa replied, then immediately flushed with embarrassment. "I mean, she was just making sounds, but she calls you mama," Damien said quietly, and Rosa's face went pale. "Sir, I never encouraged her to." Rosa, "Stop." Damien's voice was gentle but firm. "You are her mama in every way that matters. You've been more of a mother to her than anyone else has." Tears gathered in Rosa's eyes as Lily crawled over too. Damien, babbling excitedly about her day in her own incomprehensible language. Watching his daughter's complete trust and joy, Damien realized that Rosa's love had created the foundation for Lily to love others, including him. That night, after putting Lily to bed together, a routine that had evolved naturally over the months, Damien found himself reluctant to end the day. He and Rosa often talked after Lily was asleep, discussing her development, sharing stories about their own childhoods, or simply enjoying the peaceful quiet of the evening. "Rosa, I need to tell you something," Damien said as they sat in his study, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows. "What you've given Lily, what you've given both of us, it's beyond any job description or salary I could ever offer." Rosa looked down at her hands. "She's easy to love, sir." "So are you," Damien said quietly, the words surprising them both. The admission hung in the air between them, carrying the weight of months of growing closeness, shared responsibilities, and the gradual realization that they had become a family without either of them planning it. "I know this is complicated," Damien continued, Our backgrounds, our circumstances, the way we met Nonavit follows conventional patterns. But what we've built together, what we've given Lily, it's real. It's the most real thing in my life. Rosa met his eyes, her own shining with unshed tears. I never expected to find a home here. I thought this was just a job, a way to earn money to send to my family in Guatemala. But Lily became my heart, and you became your home. Damien finished softly, 6 months later, on a warm June morning. The Cross family made headlines for the second time in a year. The business journals had reported Damien's unprecedented decision to promote his maid to childcare provider. Now, society pages buzzed with news of their small, intimate wedding ceremony. It's held in the penthouse garden, with Lily as the guest of honor. But the most significant transformation wasn't captured in any newspaper. It was visible in the family. Photos that now lined Damien's office walls, images of genuine smiles, spontaneous laughter, and the kind of love that money could never buy. The cold billionaire who had once measured relationships in terms of utility had learned that the most valuable investment he could make was in the people who chose to love him unconditionally. Years later, when business schools studied Damien Cross's career, they would note the dramatic shift in his leadership style and company culture that occurred in his late 30s. What they wouldn't understand was that the transformation began on a cold marble floor, with a young woman who chose compassion over comfort and changed the trajectory of 3 lives forever, the billionaire who had walked in to find his maid. Sleeping on the floor had indeed shocked everyone with his next move. But the most shocking part wasn't the promotion or the wedding, it was the discovery that sometimes the most profound wealth comes disguised as the simplest kindness. Asterisk.